But it just makes me hard to, like, I don't get up in the morning over something pointless. Like, a good example, and again, what is pointless to me is not pointless to someone else. I don't want to hurt anybody's feeling when I say this, but like, connect with a guy in the founders group who he's got 5 cars in Miami that he's renting out. Mm-hmm. It's a brilliant business. He's renting them out via Turo, which is Airbnb for cars. And I'm like, this is awesome. So like next week, I'm going to go buy a Corvette. I'm going to list it in Nashville, and I'm going to have it available to rent every day. I think it's like an awesome business.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm not like telling people, oh, I'm going to change the world. Because, it's a way to make extra income to hopefully, fund building more businesses or et cetera, et cetera. But I have a hard time, like I love starting businesses, and that's super exciting to me. But I can never like, it's much more exciting when you create something that nobody has ever created before.
Exactly.
Or you take something people have created and you make it a lot better.
That's awesome. And so, like, that kind of segues into my next question is our, statement now and then question later. Our brand, StaleFace Inc. is a brand that promotes innovation and promotes ways of doing things better, more efficiently, quicker, however they may be. And I really do think that your brand, your HEX, is very innovative. One thing that we're trying to get people to do is a lot of times when you say innovation, what's innovation? The first thing people think about is like 100% green energy or something super massive, world-changing things. And we're like, that's great. That's also innovation. But when you kind of start that big, it's kind of hard to just look down and be like, hey, at your job, you have a form that you fill out. If it normally takes you 6 hours to do, but you learned a way you can do it in 2, technically, you innovated something. So not having people scale it so big that it seems unattainable.
You got to be practical. Gary Vaynerchuk always talks about that so much, and I love it because it's like I meet all these people that are like, I've started my company, we're trying to raise $2 million. I'm like, well, have you ever run a successful business before? No. Have you ever started a business before? No. Have you ever raised capital before? No. I guess the ambition is cool, but like, what fantasy land do you live in? Like at the end of the day, like you don't just go from driving a Camry to being like, all right, what Rolls Royce do I want to buy today?
Exactly.
And of course, it's like what my goal is. I have an old Camry that I'm trying to drive, so I buy my Rolls Royce. But and the reality, like that's true. Like everything. So when I hear these people, like, oh yeah, we're just trying to find a way to solve world hunger, for example. Like that's awesome, but like, let's start with like a real actual, and my goals are that, like I say, I want to ensure that everyone in the world has access to fresh water, but I'm not like, if we're to get super practical into it, there's actually a practical plan, and I don't think that exists with a lot of companies. I just think it's like this, it's just this thing that business is really easy, and like, oh, okay, so yeah, we want to, make no car in the world have emissions.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, do you have 20 billion to even maybe start to discuss that? Then let's start with something else.
Exactly. There's levels to this, and so when you try and jump from level 1 to level 730, there's you miss some steps, and that's one thing that, going back to what you're talking about, your patience, is that one thing we're doing now is trying to study in preparation for these level changes, because I don't want to ever happen that, let's just say hypothetically we're on level 4 and we're trying to get to level 100. We want to make sure that we're ready to make those steps to go from 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, blah, 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 whatever we have to do, so that if, let's just say for some reason we get a chance to jump maybe 10 levels where we're not completely prepared for it, but it's something that we can tackle if we have enough time, going ahead and preparing in advance so that we don't get caught with our pants down when somebody comes and be like, hey, I really like what y'all are doing, blah, 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 here's this, make it work, I like y'all, I believe in y'all, go make it happen. And so we don't want to be stuck there like, yo, I've never done this before, I have no idea what we're doing. I'd rather prepare now in hopes of that happening and just grind our way through that particular process.
Yeah, but I also think us as humans, we do a lot better when we're given the, like, hey, I'm going to put you on level 100, good luck. Like,
this is definitely true.
Are you familiar with Jesse Itzler?
What's the name?
I am not, actually.
So Jesse Itzler founded Marquis Jets, which was acquired by NetJets.
Okay.
And then he partnered with Nico Coconut Water that was acquired by Coca-Cola. And then his wife is the founder and CEO of StaleFace.
Okay.
Which is Sarah Blakely.
Yeah.
Which is a $1 billion company. So she's worth she's like worth like $2 billion or $1.5 billion or something like that. And he's worth like $100 million. So like a total power couple. But Jesse's like one of the coolest people ever. Just super cool dude. He wrote Living with a SEAL, where he invited a Navy SEAL to come live with him for 30 days.
Okay.
And it turns out that Navy SEAL was David Goggins, which has been, nominated like the hardest man alive.
Yeah.
This dude ran 100-mile marathons 11 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I remember hearing about him. Yeah.
So crazy. But anyway, he talks about how he knew nothing about any business he's ever started. So he just had these ideas, and then he just kind of, was thrown into it and started to execute. And it's because he knew nothing about the industry and nothing about the businesses that he was able to be crazy innovative and be very disruptive, because he thought like nobody else thought.
Yeah. That's true. That's one of those things where when you haven't, going back to what you're talking about, if you haven't been indoctrinated to think a certain way, if you haven't been in that industry, you tend to tackle your problems a little bit differently than everybody else. So, how do you think of yourself as an innovator? I know you have your brand, your HEX brand with the gun mounts, but other than that, like how do you innovate in your daily life?
I think I'm just like, I'm not attracted to be like anybody else.
Yeah.
I think that's like what makes me innovative, in the sense of like people oftentimes like will question why I do things, and it's like, oh, what book did you read that in? I'm like, I didn't. I just like I do it because I want to.
Yeah.
And so I think that's like a lot of like, I think there's so many people that are trying to follow somebody, and so maybe it's me as a leader, and I'm just thinking like, well, that's what I do. I lead. I don't follow. But yeah, I mean, naturally, when you haven't, again, what sets so many kids up for failure is that they were told a lie since they were so little. They were told that like entrepreneurship isn't a real thing, and that you don't ever get a good paying job without a degree. And so they were told lies their entire life, to where now when they're 20, they're my age, or 22, 23, 24, they're like, they realize the real world is nothing like they were told their entire life.
Yes.
So me being innovative is that I just wasn't indoctrinated. I didn't have this, I often use this example. I've never once thought a racist thought, because my parents weren't racist, and they never once said anything racist before. So like color is color. Like I never thought you would see me at a playground as a kid interacting with every color, because it didn't mean anything to me. It's just colors. It's just people. People are people.
Yeah.
But the kid who's got racist parents thinks racist thoughts because he was indoctrinated that way.
Yeah.
So I just think that me just simply being myself and truly trying to be a follower of Christ and be a little Jesus and just be who I am and just live my life to the best of my ability is how I look at myself as being innovative.
Yeah.
That's just a question.
So I have a question for you, which is, kind of general, but I just want you to think about it for a second, because it's gonna, how you answer is gonna segue me into more of a discussion about it. So, when's the last time you had a big problem with something, and how did you go about resolving that?
So, really, this summer has been, my sales for 1.9 have drastically dropped. Instantly my thought is I kind of go back and forth with thoughts. I think during times of crisis, the key is just to pick one train of thought and follow it. But because you're so scared, because so much is going on, you try to go down 30 paths at once. So, example is our sales start to drastically drop. And so I'm like, all right, I got to cut sales guys, but also I need sales guys because I need sales to come in. There's kind of all this panic. And so what I did is just kind of like got away from everything, and I just kind of strategized. All right, what is the method that works best for us? What's the industry that could use what we do most? And that's like service-based businesses that really use a website to showcase what they do. So if it was like a flower boutique, they could really use a website to showcase their beautiful flowers, or a really nice architectural firm, or something like that. So I hand-picked that list, and then I went to Mike, who is with Dial, which is also in the Founders Group, and I was like, all right, this is who we're going to go after. And I just what I try to do is just remain calm, weather the storm. Because the one thing that I understand is this, no matter if I get a sell or get 0 sales or whatever, I still have to wake up every morning. So the best thing I can do is remain calm, become mentally stable, lead my team, and just continue to do what I know works, which is build relationships, provide value every single day.
That's awesome. That's pretty great. The reason why I asked that is just because, for people who will listen to this later, I want to know what your problems are, because how you deal with your problems is a very clear image of how you deal with things daily. And if you lose it, then that kind of tells me and other people that if you lose it when you come up against things, then maybe certain businesses and success and entrepreneurship in particular is just not not your path that you need to take, because you have to you have
exactly.
You have to definitely maintain, diplomacy, and you have to maintain your mind, because once you get to a level like where you're at, and so many other people, you're not responsible just for yourself anymore. You're the ringleader now, and you're really responsible for so many other lives, as well as your own reputation and integrity.
And that's where ego is the biggest enemy, because ego tells you that you got it under control and that you're the boss, where reality tells you, hey, how about you just talk to other leaders? How about you talk to other CEOs, other people who have gone through this, and see if you can find a solution to get through this hard time. Exactly. So my biggest thing is I'm always talking about my problems. And some people look at that and they go, oh, you're so weak because of that. It's now I know, I'm like, no, I'm strong because of that. You have nowhere to attack me because I've told you everything about me.
Yeah.
That, and at that point, I don't know, maybe you have, or, my brother has over here, but I haven't heard of anybody ever, overloading their brain with knowledge. So I don't think you can fill. I don't think you can overfill yourself with too many things. There might be some things that you will forget because you got new knowledge. That's just called getting old. But spilling everything and talking about your problems definitely gives you an insight from different leaders' perspectives, because they may have ran up against the same things or something similar, and now because you have had that conversation and shared that moment, you may definitely have saved yourself further troubles, because now you know how to avoid that.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I always tell people is stop playing the game that you have it all under control. In the sense of entrepreneurs, business leaders, we often look very calm and collective. I'm definitely guilty of that, and it's because I'm very mentally sound, and I just feel very comfortable in my own skin. Nothing really scares me. Somebody asked me my biggest fear, and I was like, I guess somebody holding me underwater, trying to drown me. But other than that, I'm not scared to do anything. I'm not scared to risk my entire life savings on something that has a 10% chance of success. I'm just not scared of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest thing I do, the big thing is this: we're all broken. We all have problems. We all have issues. And so you can just continue to act like you don't have problems, or maybe you don't spend enough time thinking about yourself and thinking about oh, here's what I need to work on. But look, when you identify problems, then you can fix them. And that's what I'm about, just identifying what's wrong and then working on fixing it.
That's great, man. That's That's a very distinguished answer to all of that.